Hey folks, David here, and a while back somebody had asked me what would make the good point of an EDC or an everyday carry knife. Now, case in point, you have to realize that there's going to be some practicality involved, and also there's, the very simple point about size, weight, how much is it going to rip up your pocket. I mean, for instance, I carry around a Swiss Army Champ, and a Champ is basically, well, it's like one of these guys stacked side by side. I think this one's actually like a climber or like a tanker or something. It's got some stuff on board. It's going to be the limit of what I'm demonstrating today, but you guys can pretty much get the gist of things. But it's like two of these knives side by side. It's a chunky little spud. It's about, probably better part of about an inch and change, at least an inch and change wide, probably about close to an inch and a half almost in width, 30 millimeters. It is a massive hunk of metal to have in your pocket. As a matter of fact, it is such a big clunky beast. I've actually got most of my pants where the right front pocket is just, it's shredded. It's worn out simply because this knife is just so huge in terms of aspect. It was rubbing around, cussing, walking around stuff. That might be a bit too much. Now, something along that one of these guys where you pretty much have, like, some multifunction blades and some, carryover between one tool versus another tool. Case in point, there's the old classic line about a big tool can do small jobs, but a small knife cannot do big jobs. That is very, very true. If you have a knife that is entirely too flippin' big, and you're carrying this thing around, I mean, it's the same problem as, like, people that actually have carry concealed permits. If you have too big a pistol, you could ask any cop what's it like to be walking around with a Sam Brown belt on all the time, probably 20 pounds of crap around his waist, with a pistol sticking up that's just digging a hole in his car seat, have to get a seatbelt on, a seatbelt off, and all the rest of that fun stuff. Same problem with a knife. If you have an everyday carry knife, you want to have something that is unobtrusive as to when you actually do need it. Now, case in point for me to carry around a Champ, yes, I do use a lot of the tools on board. Is it overkill? Sometimes. I mean, there's some stuff on there that I rarely ever, if never use. There's like a pen on board. There's a actual pin on board, which I guess would be good for blisters and stuff. But you know what? You can kind of get around that stuff because, even on the smaller knives, you have scissors. You can pretty much like snip at the edge of the blister, get it to drain. There's all kinds of ways around stuff like that. For me personally, if you're looking for something that's going to be everyday carry, you wish to have something that is going to be probably not much more than about 4 or 5 ounces in your pocket, and probably not too terribly much bigger than like one of these 89, 91 millimeter Swiss Armies, because it just gets too flipping massive. Now, case in point, I know everybody's got like all kinds of tons of stuff out there. There's Gerber, Buck, Kershaw, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of names. For me personally, I have always found the Swiss Army knife to be possibly one of the best ever designed EDC knives in existence on planet Earth. That's just my personal preference. Now, what I usually define as something that's good for everyday carry is a multiplicity of tools without having to carry around 4 different knives. If you got things all over your person, it does not make your life any easier. To carry around something like this, you have multiple knife blades, so if one goes dull, you switch off to the other one. You have a saw blade when things are getting really, really, really bad. These things will buzz through a 2x4 like nobody's business. I have literally shocked people with how fast you can fly through a 2x4 with a Swiss Army knife saw blade. It is just one of those awesome, awesome executions. The scissors on board, believe it or not, if you have a new pair of these and you're charitable, these will cut a penny. It's not going to like it, and you're probably going to bugger up the blade in the process. But for all intents and purposes, it's about a $30 knife. If you're having situations where you need to get your ass out of trouble, potentially you could get this thing to get you out of a car in the worst of times. Now, as for popping glass, there really is no good true hard edge that is strong enough, sharp enough, and has like a tungsten carbide point on it to break car glass. That's going to be something that's not going to work so good. But if you're very careful, there is a way to get this thing underneath the seatbelt, cut yourself loose, and get out of Dodge. Now, the classic trick is you ride the point on your finger, so whenever you go underneath something, you're not stabbing yourself in the process to get loose. This is not something that's going to be very hard to fish out of your pocket in the worst of times. The corkscrew is kind of a, corkscrew is it's really not going to be that necessary a thing, but in the worst of times, you could use this to poke holes in something and could actually thread through there, and that's one of the other cool things that's designed in these guys, and that's kind of one of the cool things. That little itty-bitty hole that is in the awl is so you can stab cloth, put a piece of string through it, pull it out, stab string, stab string, stab string, and you can stitch stuff together. There's a lot of really cool technological innovation that's been put into these things because they've been around for so flipping long. Now, I know there's the huge purists going, well, I prefer this name, that name, and every other thing. You know what? Whatever blows your hair back, man. Carry it to your best execution. You're not going to hurt my feelings whatsoever. Me, personally, I adore, have carried, and utilized whatever possible the Swiss Army knives. Now, for an everyday carry knife, the biggest things you got to take into place and really hold true is it has to be, one, unobtrusive, or something that's not going to be like constantly poking on you or digging in you or making all these other things hard. You want to have something that is going to be light for the size and not particularly just burdensome to carry all day long. Now, I mean, like I said, going back to that CCW thing, if you're carrying around a Smith & Wesson 6-inch Magnum, that's a tank, man. That thing's like 40-some-odd ounces of revolver, if not more. I mean, a 1911 is 39 ounces. I mean, you know, any of these things are going to be huge. They're going to be unobtrusive, and you're going to know about it carrying a couple pounds on your side. Same thing with a knife. If you have some massive full-tank construction beast, and that's your standard carry, and you're comfortable with it, hey, man, go for it. Whatever makes you happy, whatever floats your boat. Personally, if you're looking for something you're going to be carrying around day to day, all the time, EDC, you do not want to be walking around with a machete on your side, walking through the city. You're going to draw a little bit of bad attention. You don't want that kind of stuff. That's the other aspect of EDC. You want to have it, you want to be able to use it, but you don't want everybody going, hey, man, how come you're walking around with this machete on your side? Case in point, you don't want to point out the obvious that, hey, I got a big-ass knife. Not something you want to do. Third thing is you want to get to a price point where it's not going to bankrupt you. There's a lot of knives out there that are really, really, really expensive, and they're not going to do the job any better than a $40 Smith & Wesson knife or a $40 Swiss Army knife or a $40 Kershaw knife. All these price points, the only thing you're really giving up from the better knife to this knife is it's going to be hand ground and it's going to be a better steel. Now, when it gets down to it, a better steel out in the middle of bad times, you're going to need a diamond sharpening stone. And if you don't have a diamond sharpening stone, there is probably not too many rocks around that are going to sharpen that ridiculously, unbelievably good quality steel, and you're going to be dealing with a butter knife before very long. Now, granted, it's going to hold an edge for a long flipping time, but when it finally goes dull, you are in trouble. Same thing can be said for ceramic knives. I mean, the things hold an edge phenomenally. They're blisteringly sharp, surgically sharp steel, no, not steel, but surgically sharp knives that'll cut like nobody's business. But once they go dull, you are in trouble because there's only a few people that can actually resharpen a ceramic knife. If you have a Kairosera, the Japanese ceramic knives, phenomenal construction. The Chinese stuff is not too far behind it because the Chinese actually, it's a dirty little secret, the Chinese are actually the supplier for, the stuff that actually makes the ceramic knives. Actually, what happens is they find the stuff in Australia, send it out to China, China refines it, sends it out to Japan, Japan finally makes the knives out of it. So the Chinese go, well, we're just going to keep some of this stuff and make our own. Is it going to be the same as the Japanese? No. But is it an EDC knife? No. A ceramic knife will never be an EDC knife for one very good reason. It breaks. It's ceramic. It is not steel. These things can take a heck of a lot more, torture and stuff. I literally have taken a Swiss Army knife, and I bent the blade 30 degrees out of true, returned it to true, and people were surprised it didn't snap or didn't keep a bend. Good steel, man. Not the best steel on the planet, but good steel. Translation, I am a fan of the Swiss Army knife. I've always been a fan. I will always have a multiplicity of those in my collection. I will always have one as an EDC. Now, for you guys, you got to figure out three things. Price point, carryability, and, of course, what's it going to do in the long run. That's it, essentially, for an EDC. Hope this works for you guys, and, try not to make this video too terribly long, and, of course, I've only demoed one knife, but you know what? Once you've seen one knife, you kind of can go, okay, well, that brings up the points for this one versus that one, this one does this one, that one does that one, I like this one versus that one, and all the rest of the good stuff like that there. So let me break off on this one, folks. Eat good, keep it a 10 ring, and as always, have a good EDC knife. It'll save your ass. See you guys.